All right, give it a shot here. Vita Brevis. Okay. Short life. Part 2. Dear, is there anything I can get for you? Anne asked John, who was sitting in a chair next to the wood stove, listening to the shortwave. No, darling, I reckon I'm okay. Go on to bed if you like, he replied. She bent over to kiss him goodnight and said as she walked towards their bedroom door, well then, don't stay up all night listening to that radio. You've got work to do tomorrow. Good night. Good night, he said as she closed the door. He took another deep sip of the bourbon and water in his glass, feeling melancholy and hoping for a news broadcast to distract him. Tuning into Radio Moscow, he caught the last few minutes of their English-language North American broadcast. Mexican officials restated today that further talks on the Mexican-American Petroleum Agreement would be dependent on the beginning of talks concerning the status of the Aztlan territory in the U.S. Southwest. President Bush has thus far declined to discuss the issue and declared that further delays in completing the agreement would jeopardize the U.S.'s participation in the North American Free Trade Agreement as it applies to the United States and Mexico. Widespread fighting has broken out again between the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, FARC, and the Colombian military in the capital city of Bogota, with FARC forces now thought to control nearly one-third of the city. A spokesperson for the organization in Caracas, Venezuela, stated today that the left-leaning revolutionaries are expected to take the city within the week and that the present Colombian government will be forced to capitulate within the month. Colombian President Andrés Pastrana blasted the statement as being beneath contempt and that the Colombian army will soon begin a counterattack to oust the FARC rebels from the city. The Colombian president also decried the continued withdrawal of American troops and equipment from the beleaguered nation, stating that without their help it would be impossible for Colombia to stem the tide of illicit drugs flowing from that nation into the U.S. This is the English language service of Radio Moscow. We'll bring you more news at 0400 Greenwich Mean Time. John took another long pull from his drink, studied his frequency list, and punched in a new frequency set into the radio. A moment's static, then a cultured British voice came from the speaker. In Russia today, there has been continued fighting in several northern provinces today between central government troops and provincial forces as struggles over food and fuel shipments continue in the face of an increasingly bitter Russian winter. Repeated rumors of war crimes and massacres have made their way out of the snowbound nation, but none as of yet have been verifiable. The Kremlin has declined to comment. Attempts at contacting any northern provincial governor's office have proved unsuccessful, so correspondents have been dispatched to the scene to report in person. We will bring you word as soon as they have arrived. European Union officials report that with internal European relief efforts becoming better organized, it will be possible to increase the amount of aid being sent to the disaster-stricken United States as soon as President Bush agrees to allow EU officials administrative authority over the distribution of the aid. Right. The Denver White House has not yet commented on this latest request. Repeated rumors have reached the BBC of the death of Chinese President Xi Jinping, but as of yet we have not been able to obtain confirmation. Articles in the Hong Kong, Macau, and Shanghai papers have made allusions to his death, but they have thus far not published any news confirming the premier is indeed dead. John took another pull from his glass. His eyes felt grainy, so he closed them and laid his head back to rest them for a while before trying another station. Presently, he began to softly snore. In the Middle East, Iranian President Mohammad Khatami stated today that further machinations on the part of the Russian Federation to squeeze Iran out of the rich Caspian seafloor oil fields will only drive his nation further into the arms of the more hardline elements of the OPEC nations. The Iranian president did not clarify his remarks when he was speaking before the Iranian State Assembly. In breaking news, Al Jazeera television in Qatar has just now broadcast that it has received confirmation that President Saddam Hussein of Iraq has indeed been assassinated. There is no word as yet who is responsible. Turkey has placed its troops on full alert, as has Iran, Syria, Jordan, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. The U.S. has ordered 2 carrier battle groups to stations along the Iraqi coast. Further news as it becomes available. This is the BBC World Service. Further news at the top of the hour. There you go. Good night.